Welcome everybody to another episode of Transparency Podcast. I am your girl, Butta B-Rocka. It is a pleasure to be here today. If you have not already done so, I know everybody is being quarantined right now. Please make sure you use this time to elevate your mind. Study, learn something new, read my book, Fear of Failure, Fear of Not Trying, which so happened to be the forward was by who we have on the phone today, or who we have on the video today, Mr. Cappriccieo. So with that being said, Mr. Cappriccieo Scates, are you here today? How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
You know, I am doing good. It's a beautiful day outside. I actually went and took a walk. I haven't really been able to fully walk, because of my knee surgery. So
that's right.
I appreciate being able to walk. Little things.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that.
So I appreciate you being on to my show, my new podcast. I was thinking of the first set of people that I wanted to interview, and of course you was at the top of my list, because I truly admire you so much. You are an amazing man who has been very instrumental in my own personal life on so many levels. So before I get to all of that, why don't we tell everybody who you are, let you explain, a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, let me just say I'm honored to be here. I actually thought about putting on a tuxedo, but I said, I'm going to make this very special because I really appreciate you and all that you're doing. And as you mentioned, we have been working around and together for a while, so I definitely appreciate you. I actually started out playing drums. I went from that to playing bass guitar, and I started doing independent promotion as far as radio, retail, clubs, street promotion, working for various labels: Sony, Universal, Tommy Boy, Atlantic, Death Row, a bunch of labels in the Virginia, DC, Baltimore market. And from there, I got an opportunity to go to Rough House Columbia Records, where I did national radio promotion. So I promoted Criss Cross, the Fuji, Cypress Hill. I wrote a book on artist management called 10 Steps to Successfully Managing Recording Artists. I started managing songwriters and producers, some of which whose credits include Michael Jackson, Beyonce, Nivea, Charlie Wilson, etc. And actually, I wrote a second book, or a sequel to that book, called The 11th Step I Missed, because I had to go back in and fix the point that I forgot, which was the order of God, family, and work. So I couldn't leave that undone. So I had to go back and correct the 10 steps and make it an 11th step that I missed. From there, I moved to Atlanta to launch the Atlanta CSAC office. I was there for just under 7 years, where I signed many great songwriters and publishers to the company. As a result of some of the successes we had there, I got the opportunity to go to work with Dr. Creflo Dollar and Pastor Taffy Dollar to run their label, Arrow Records, where I signed gospel greats Ann Nesby and Kim Burrell. And as a result of those successes, I got a chance to launch a label in the Universal system called My Trail Records. So I consider that to sort of be my Bruce Wayne. And then when I'm doing my Batman, I'm at SAE Institute, where I teach all the music business modules. And on the philanthropic side, I'm also the UN Ambassador to Vienna. My term ends in September, but at this point, I'm currently the UN Ambassador to Vienna. So that's my 30-second elevator speech.
Oh my God, that was a lot. Okay, so let me make sure I got all of this right. Not only are you super awesome, but you're an author. Again, you have a book, 10 Steps to Successfully Managing Recording Artists. Now you've made a second book called 11 what?
The 11th Step I Missed, because I needed to go back in and fix that.
Okay, so you're an author. And you had already mentioned some of the artists that you was managing. Could you mention them again?
Well, directly, I managed K. Michelle at one time. I managed P. Parker from 112. I had a really talented songwriter, Nastasia Kendall. And so, of course, just working with the labels, having the opportunity as the liaison for the labels inside of the marketplace. I worked with everyone from Michael Jackson to Meatloaf and in between. And of course, I pitched records and placed records, so for television and film. So, I'm 25 years at it. This year is my 26th year. So it's been quite an extensive and wonderful and fairly successful career, but always looking for that next level. So one day, hopefully, I'll get a chance to go run Sony or Universal or Warner Brothers.
Wow. So from the management standpoint, what were some takeaways that you got as a manager, and what type of advice can you give other other upcoming managers?
Well, I think people often ask about what I consider success, or what are the keys to success, and I think they're consistency and humility. And so my takeaway as far as the management is concerned is, number one, you have to be consistent and dedicated to your clients. I sort of refer to it as sort of, there's a puddle on the ground, you lay over it, you allow the client to walk over your back, and you don't expect someone to give you a towel to dry yourself off with. And you may stand up and you're drenching wet, and they go, "How'd you get wet?" And I realize, and they walk back. But you got to be okay with that, and you have to be able to see their successes as your own. So I think my biggest takeaway is the point of humility, and just understanding that it takes, number one, humility and consistency to be successful.
We also need people to understand that there's two different types of managers. There's the business manager, and then there's also the personal manager. So when you was managing the Cappriccios and the different people, which role was you taking? And then sometimes a manager just takes on all roles.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk business, we're talking more like CPAs, or people that are dealing with certified financial planning and that type of thing. But on the personal management side, and in addition, there's also the role manager,
right?
Sort of personal manager and a role manager. But typically, I was doing more personal management and role management. So you're dealing with the day-to-day activities of the artist, everything that deals with their day-to-day lives. So it could be anything from buying a car, helping them buy a car, to helping them pick songs or whatever, everything to deal with the day-to-day lives of people. I sort of liken it to almost being like a parent in the music industry. So you're almost like their father or their mother in the music industry, in essence.
Right. Okay. So then you switched over from being an author. You was the former senior director of CSAC, which is where I met you at. As people know, that you are either a writer with CSAC, ASCAP, or BMI, and Cappriccieo was over the Atlanta division of CSAC. And when I met you there, I think one of the things, because at the time I used to be with BMI, and I was in the process of getting out of that contract. And when I met you, one of the things that pulled me into CSAC is that when you would throw your events and everything, you really did include everybody. And you used to always say, you never know who that next person is going to be. And you didn't treat people as if they was a newbie, what I'm saying is, somebody that had already had a lot of success, you still treated the new person the same way, with the same type of love and respect. And you gave everybody the same type of shot. And I used to always admire and appreciate you for that, because I used to be with BMI, and true story, one of my friends who's a big time songwriter was over at my house, and I was telling him, I said, you know what, I've never even been to BMI here in Atlanta, and I've been with BMI for years, and I'm not knocking BMI, but I'm just telling you my experience. And I'm like, I've been with BMI for years, and I said, I don't even know the people who's running the Atlanta office, because when I joined up, I signed up in Tampa, and so this big friend of mine who's a huge success as a writer, he was like, I talk to them all the time, and I'm like, they never pick up the phone for me. So true story, I called and said, hey, I would like to come in to speak, to meet everybody and speak. And the lady said, well, it's just a normal office. And she was like, she didn't want to meet. And I had placements, but I got placements overseas. And we hung up the phone, and he was like, that's crazy. And he called, and they picked right up. And she said, when you coming down to the office, man? And she was like, I ain't seen you in a long time. I said, see, that's that bull. That's that bull right there. It's time for me. So I was super excited when I went over to CSAC. And when I say you welcomed me with open arms, I went up to New York, and you put me, I forgot his name off the top of my head.
Trevor, yeah, Trevor.
You put me with Trevor, and then when I went to LA, you put me with James, and everybody treated me like I was family, and it was just so cool. And then you got me on the Christmas party, singing for CSAC, which led to so many other big things. And then you got me also featured in the magazine. So, you know, you've been a blessing in my life, and I'm truly, truly honored to have you on my show.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And really, you know, that's really what it should be about. The performing rights organization is a component. You know, there's your manager, your booking agent, your record label, your publicist, and they're just one additional piece to your team, and you should actually be able to engage. And I think, you know, one thing I often ask writers, if I'm in a room full of writers and I say, how many PMI writers we have? Some folks will raise their hands. How many ASCAP? Some folks will raise their hands. But I always leave them with, you know, how many of you know who your representative is? And if you don't raise your hand, fundamentally, that's a flaw. That's an issue, because it's a component that you should be able to tap into. And it's not a knock on ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC. I think they all do exceptionally well at what they do, but they're a part of your team, and you should be able to tap in, and that's very important.
Absolutely. And then another thing, as far as tapping in, not only should you be able to tap in, but like you used to have at your parties, you didn't have this VIP section that was only for the elite. You had everybody in the same room able to mix and mingle, and you used to even host those different events where people could mash up and possibly you know, work together and everything. So it was a really cool experience to me. I personally miss you over at CSAC. And now that the Atlanta office is done, it definitely, the tone has changed a little bit. It's not the same, but I miss you. A lot of people miss you. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. Okay, so after you left CSAC, you said you started working with Creflo Dollar?
Correct. Yeah, I went to run his label, Arrow Records. Yeah.
Okay. And
that was.
What did you do there?
Say again. I'm sorry.
What did you do? So you was running his label, and what does that entail?
Yeah, so I was the executive general manager. So all the day-to-day activities related to the label, whether it be signing artists, dealing with business affairs, dealing with distribution, marketing, promotions, everything to deal with the day-to-day operations inside of a label. I was responsible for making sure that those things were properly executed and delivered on time and schedule.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know Creflo Dollar had a record label. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm assuming it's a gospel, you know.
Yeah, gospel. We're sort of primarily also inspirational, but more leaning towards the gospel arena for sure.
Okay. All right. So, is there a blueprint for anyone in the music industry? Is there a straight line?
No, you know, I'd like to say run fast, run slow, turn around 3 times, and bark. And if I could do that and that would be it, I put that in the box and I sell it to you. But there is no real method. I think, again, as we already sort of discussed, is really just being consistent. Right. And, you know, I'll ask people, I'll say, and I'll just, for the fun of it, I'll ask you, are you familiar with Sarah McLachlan, the artist?
I'm not.
So you probably, if you ever watch the SPCA commercials, it's the song that they play where they show the little dogs, and the dogs are looking all cold and shaking and stuff. But the point is Sarah McLachlan sold 33 million records worldwide. And there are a lot of people that don't know who she is. So the point is that she doesn't have to find everybody or get everybody to like her. She only has to find the people that are interested in her. So that 33 million records sold, she was able to identify and find her market. And so that's what's important.
Yeah.
Finding your audience.
I'm sorry to cut you off. You sound like what they taught us over at Taxi when I went to LA. They was telling us you don't have to be this big person. You got to find your own niche. And so they gave an example of somebody that all of their songs is based around horses. And I mean, in their lane, they are the king. They was the king of all of these downloads, and I mean, and so thousands and thousands, and I'm like, oh, that's crazy. So one of my friends, Homer McEwen, he took that same approach, and He's a singer, he's a songwriter and everything. But to make himself stand out, he started writing about what he does on a daily basis, which is databases and computers and software and stuff. And he really started making all of these songs to the point where Microsoft and all of these tech companies start hiring him to perform at different conferences and different things like that. So it's important that everybody understands there's so many niches out there. You don't have to be the straight and narrow person or artist at all. There's so many different ways now.
Yeah, you just have to find your audience. That's all at the end of the day. I mean, imagine that, people, you say, who's Sarah McLachlan? They have no idea, but she sold 33 million records. So
that's crazy.
He found her audience.
Yeah. With today's society being more digital and, the Instagrams and stuff like that, I could definitely say back in my day when I was getting started, we didn't have all of that. So the approach and the audience is easier, I think, to a degree. I think now it's become so saturated where a lot of anything goes now. I need to say this politically correct. Anything goes now, and sometimes it's watered down a little bit, and it's not based off of the skill levels. It's more based off of how the person looks and who they know type thing. So it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing to me. What's your take?
Yeah, we're just in a different climate, and it's a great time if you understand content. Unfortunately, most people are leveraging themselves out of the business because they're running around giving away their music for free. Right. And so I think that part of it probably has had a negative and adverse effect, because you put that song out there, we mentioned ASCAP being my CSAC, and there's no metadata fix. You can't even get paid. You're invisible. Like, we don't even know who you are. So I think that's the one thing that's hurting artists, is not really understanding, that ultimately this thing boils down to copyrights and masters. Who owns the copyright? Who controls the master? Who controls the master? Who owns the copyright? That's why the record label says, come over here, cool artists, sign right here, because we want to own the masters. The publisher says, come over here, cool songwriters, sign right here, because we want to participate in the copyright ownership. Reason being is because that's where all the revenue is. So you have to understand content at this particular point. We went from, physical to digital to now streaming. And, who knows where it's headed? It's probably going towards, holoportation or, something to that effect. Who knows?
Right. So you don't recommend people just putting their stuff out there for free?
Well, I think that obviously if you can monetize it, and there's some method to the madness, so to speak. People put it out there and they're trying to ultimately, garner the interest. And I think that's one angle, but that doesn't necessarily work for everyone. But if you are going to put it out there, at least have it where the information is affixed. So the metadata, you've registered at ASCAP, BMR, and CSAC. It's in the system, whether it be, TuneCore, CD Baby, DistroKid, whatever, and you register the Sound Exchange. Like, you're at least handling the business, because there's that little word show and that big word business. And I like to sort of use an analogy. We're all familiar with the Titanic, and we know what sank the Titanic was an iceberg. And if you look at the iceberg, what you see protruding outside of the water, above the water, is that nice frilly stuff, and that's considered show. But the large mass underneath the bottom is actually the business. And so if that ship had only hit the show, it would have sailed right over it, but it hit that mass underneath, which is the business, and it sank. So if you don't handle your business, ultimately your ship will sink.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. My mom, she taught me at a very young age, you gotta know the business side of it. I mean, it's cool to get on stage and sing and everything, but you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You're gonna set yourself up for some failure later on. Okay, so.
Absolutely.
September 22nd, 2011, former Mayor Kasim Reed presented you with the keys to the city of Atlanta. I mean, like, what? You got your own date?
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, a lot of this stuff has just been very ordered and divine, and I couldn't tell you how some of this stuff is happening. I just know that God's doing something, and I'm attempting to walk and be great as I could possibly be and just do what God is calling me to do. And not to be too mushy, but I know it's really bigger than me, and so ultimately I just want to do what I'm called to do. man. So I don't even, sometimes people say, well, how did this happen? How did you get knighted? Or how did you get, you know, the day name? That I don't know. It's, you know, I get these phone calls and people say, we want to honor you, or, you know, and I show up. And so I tell people oftentimes the key also to being successful is really just showing up. You know, I beat most people because I follow through, not because I'm better than them, but because I actually execute and I do what I say I'm going to do. So I don't really have an answer, to be honest.
So having the key to the city means that on September 22nd, you get to walk in everywhere, everything free. What?
Yeah, well, you know, I haven't quite put it to the test just yet. So it's almost like the UN ambassadorship. I'll tell you a quick story. So I met with this lady. I was presenting an award, and I met this lady backstage, and she said, "You'll be a great ambassador." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, lady." And so she says, "No, I'm gonna refer you, blah blah blah." I'm thinking, "Yeah, whatever." You're talking about like the UN, United Nations, like, okay, yeah, whatever. A couple weeks go by, I get an email that says, "You've been recommended, you know, please send your bio, fill out this information, send back your background information," you know, all these different things they wanted me to do. So this was maybe like April 2016. So I'm like, okay, let me jump through these hoops, but this is crazy, whatever. So by August, I get a response saying that you've been selected. We select 17 people each year, and we're gonna need you to travel to Vienna to pick up your credentials. And I'm thinking, yeah, whatever, right? So at some point I'm waiting for Ashton Kutcher to come out and say, "You've been punked." So I'm thinking, right. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna be an ambassador, whatever. So I go all the way to Vienna. I go in, I get my credentials, get the laminate, get my badge. There's a badge where you have to basically say that you won't impersonate a federal officer, because it's the same badge that's equivalent to like the FBI or the Secret Service. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I have this badge, and I come back home, and I have no idea what the heck it is, but I'm a UN ambassador, quote unquote. So I'm driving down the street, and I make no right on red, I make a right turn. I don't see the sign. So the officer pulls me over, and I take the badge and just kind of have it slightly displayed where he can see it with my driver's license on top of it. And he looks in and he says, "Oh, have a nice day." And I'm like, huh? Okay, that was cool. So I go down to the state capitol, and I take my badge and I put it on the conveyor. I'm going in for a meeting. And the state trooper looks and sees my badge, and he whispers to me, he motions me over, and he says, "You have a weapon?" I'm like, "No." He's about to let me walk around the metal detector. So I'm like, okay. So then I'm meeting with a person at Atlantic Station, and she parks inside of the a parking meter, and so the meter is expiring, and the police is putting a ticket on the meter. And so I walk up and I have my badge displayed, and he takes the ticket and rips it up and says, "The next time, display your credentials." So I'm still not knowing what the heck this is. I'm just like, okay, they gave me a badge. What do I do? So the next year, I go back to the UN, and for diplomacy training, and I get this whole big layout as to how I have diplomatic courtesy, not quite immunity, because I'm not appointed by the government. I'm an NGO, a non-government appointee, but it's saying, in essence, you have diplomatic immunity because they don't know the difference. So when they see that badge, they respond to it the same way. So I'm going, oh, okay, now that makes sense. So when I travel through the airport and stuff like that, I get to roll a little bit freer than most people. So it's pretty cool, actually.
Oh man. Okay. So next time I need to go someplace, I need to just make sure that I have Mr. Ambassador / keys to the city with me, because then I can get through everything.
Yeah, it has its perks, I'll tell you that. So coming back through Miami, there was literally about 400 people in line, and I see the diplomat sign. So I go to the diplomat sign, and I walk past 400 people. It's just me. I go straight up. It's like, "How you doing? Welcome into the country." "Yeah, thank you. Good to see you. Get out of here."
Okay, so what is your role? What do you do as an ambassador?
So basically there are 17 pillars as it relates to the UN. So they're talking about clean air, no poverty, concerns above water, below water, just basically sort of place. So they don't refer to the UN as heaven on earth, but it keeps hell from breaking out on earth. So basically my job is someone that is on the ground dealing with my sector, which is the music industry, on a day-to-day basis. I can sort of funnel information into the UN saying, here, these are our issues, here are our concerns, this is what's happening. Maybe we may want to take a look at this. Maybe we want to enact some sort of activity in this area. So you're basically sort of, a consultant. In essence, that's what you're doing. It's an economic consultant to the United Nations. It's actually a special position, and it's the highest designated position that they have for someone that's not government appointed.
I'm not even gonna lie. When I say that's so cool, that is like, wow, like you're an ambassador. Like, what's next, President?
So of course I have had the opportunity to visit the White House, the state capitol, Congress, so I'm learning that, it's really about interest. It's about, you hear that term, personal interest.
Right.
And so it becomes a matter of like, what are your concerns? What are my concerns? And how do we find this happy medium or this neutral place so that we're both satisfied? So I think just as I've getting older, you start to realize what's important. And even especially with this coronavirus thing, COVID-19, we start to realize what's important. And a lot of it is really, how we can satisfy the interests of everyone so that ultimately people are accommodated. So to your question, maybe there may be some politics or political career in the future, but it'll probably be on the lower local level, maybe like a city council or something like that. But I definitely think about it for sure.
You have my vote. But let me ask you something. Wasn't you also with the Atlanta Grammy board at one point?
Yes, I was a governor on the board for I think about 3 years actually. I don't remember which years they were, but I was definitely on the board of governors for NARIS.
That is super awesome. Okay, let me look at my questions here. So speaking of coronavirus, has it affected your business?
Really not so much actually, because I teach at SAE Institute. So what they ended up doing, they canceled one of my classes, which was on a Tuesday. That Wednesday, they put everything together to set us up online. And then Thursday I was teaching. So it had a slight effect, but not really that much. And then of course, with the distribution stuff I do, it's just a matter of loading the songs up and getting them out there. So, that hasn't been affected either, to be quite honest. I've been blessed.
What's your class again?
So I teach all the music business modules. I teach copyrights, entertainment law, marketing, branding, business portfolio, entrepreneurship. So everything on the music business side. So the students that are there, some of them are getting a certificate and some of them are getting an associate's degree. And depending on which program they're in, I meet with them at some point during their program, but if it's the associate's degree, it's only it's a shorter period of time. But generally the students I have are 15 weeks and we cover different things. Each week is a different topic. So I have 4 days basically to go over with them, copyrights or publishing or management or whatever. So we do a lot in a very short amount of time.
I think it's safe to say that that what I'm definitely taking from this is that you wear many hats, and that that's important to have. I mean, it's important to expand and not just stay in one thing.
Yeah, I think, especially this time, you have to be very, diversification is very important and you have to stay diversified. I think, just we're seeing that, where people are unfortunately one thing not going in their favor from being, homeless or destitute. And so we're seeing that, people losing their jobs and stuff like that. And so it's, it's unfortunate, but you have to definitely be the type of person who can actually wear multiple hats. So just, if something sort of falls short, you pick up and you move to the next thing. But it's actually a good time as well for opportunities. So, what some people see as negative, some people see as positive. So a lot of this is going to be determined by how you walk away and how you look at it as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we've covered a whole lot of stuff. I mean, you're an author, you're an ambassador, you've ran CSAC, you've worked with the Grammys, you've done so many things. It doesn't seem like you seem like you're winning on all levels, but I know that everybody goes through struggles and goes through different things. So here at Transparency Podcast, what I'm hoping that we could do is get real with people and let them know that, I mean, yeah, you see all of this, but it took some hard work behind all of this. So can you discuss any, if any, struggles or, you know, things that you had to go through, or you just wake up like this?
No, let me tell you, you know, I always talk about the order of God, family, and work. And the fact of getting it is not the problem, it's always maintaining it. So everything created you can have, but the question becomes, can you maintain it? So I make the analogy, wife, mansion, Bentley, don't maintain it, divorce, foreclose, and repo. And so specifically, and I wasn't expecting to talk about this, but I'm glad you asked. In July 2017, my dad died in 2011. He's buried at a military installation in Minneapolis. And so I went to his gravesite. And if you are a military or service member buried there, the service member's information is on the front side of the marker, and the spouse's information is on the back side of the marker. And of course, I went there and I looked at my dad's gravesite, and I thought, man, I want to walk around to the back side of this and see if there's a name on the back side of the market. Now, of course, I knew that there would not be a name there because my dad, in essence, died alone. And so I just, for whatever, I go and I look and it's blank. And I think to myself, man, I don't want to die alone. And so, you know, although my sisters were there, you know, but he didn't really have someone in the end to hold his hand and to sort of go through it with him. Right. And so, speaking of that now, I'm single and going through this Corona thing, I'm thinking of that very same thing. I'm like, man, you know, it's important if you have a significant other, you know, and not someone that's not playing their role or doing, you know, what they're supposed to do, but I'm talking about somebody that's really holding it down and has your back. Like, that is something to be super thankful for, because right now that's something that I'm dealing with, and I'm learning that having that person to sort of just hold your hand through the process is a very important thing. So when this is all over, I'll be fixing the market. I'm on the market. I'll be fixing that.
I don't think you're gonna have no problem in that area fixing it. I think you've just been you probably been you know, picky.
Yeah, no, I'm picky, but we gonna figure it out. I don't want to be so shallow these days.
I feel it. I ain't gonna lie. I think I used to be like that too. I used to hit my next guy, because I mean, of course, you know, I went through a divorce myself, and I'm like, man, my next guy, he gonna be this, and he gonna be this, and he gonna be this. And it was like, okay, yeah, you got so many high expectations, and you got this person on a pedestal that if he mess up one time, you never gonna be in a relationship. So you gonna have to come down to earth.
Yeah. So yeah, but I think though, you know, one thing we're learning with this whole coronavirus is the fact that things that we thought were important really aren't that important.
Right.
You know, the meetings that we thought we had to attend, we don't. You know, so a lot of stuff, even with my class, we went from, you know, in class brick and mortar style to online in 2.5 seconds. So, you know, a lot of stuff is just, you're seeing that it's much different than what we really think about, or we think it is.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, I think this will be my last question. What would you say to your younger self about life?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think, funny, I'll ask friends if they can meet any 5 people dead or alive, who would they be? And one of my persons would be me, but the oldest version of myself. And so, I don't really know. I guess it's sort of like, if you say the wrong thing, or you do something to impact or change what ultimately was going to happen to make you a better person or who you are, it would have such a tremendous impact. I think for me, it's probably just focusing on the order of, you know, once upon a time, I would say, you know, that it didn't matter. There was no, God, but if God is blessing me, he's blessing my family and my work, and it's all in this big pot, and you stir it up, and don't be looking at my pot. But I did not really realize the importance of God, whatever you subscribe to, whatever you believe in, whatever keeps you grounded. It's God, then it's family, and then it's work. And then, you know, if you can get that, I think that is really helpful to navigating through your career. So that's what I would say to the younger me. is to understand the order of God, family, and work, and keep that in perspective. And I think if you're able to do that, then your chances of success are far greater than you may even realize by something that simple.
That's great words of wisdom. Well, I am not going to take up any more of your time. It has been my pleasure to have you on the show. I mean, like I said, I've always blessed every time I speak to you because I think so highly of you, and you're one of them people that lead by examples to me. So again, I'm very grateful that you took the time to be on Transparency Podcast, and I think that's it. I'm gonna sign out. Do you have any other things you want to tell people how to reach you or anything?
Sure. Yeah, I'm at Cappriccieo on all social media platforms. It's Cappriccieo. Now, baby, tell me what you want to do with me. You got it. So Cappriccieo on all social media platforms at Cappriccieo. So thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I appreciate your time as well.
All right. Thank you so much.
I'm so sick and tired of the lies, so I cried. If I died, would you care? Would you dare to take it there? Or would you open up your heart? From the start, it was over, but I see you couldn't see. My insane reality is that my love is so strange. But you know, that's how love goes. I said my love